Listen, you have to be aware of the fact that we both hate you, right? Because we've been making it very hard on you forever now with how much we ignore and use you. Either you've still not noticed or you must be very mentally strong then, huh? Being able to last this long with us living in the same house, tormenting you all the time? Have you not noticed that the both of us have been using you this whole time and won't stop until you drop dead?
You say that the both of you have hated me, yet I feel that our son can't be blamed for that hate, right? He's just been following in your footsteps this whole time since you've been hating me for a very long time now. You were the one that started everything, and that's why I've been having to put up with so much for the past 18 years. I don't understand, though, why you're only starting to ask me about it now. What do you plan to achieve with this?
Hey, do you really believe something like that? The inside of your head is just filled with flowers like I'd always assumed. I didn't think you'd lost your sanity as much as you have.
My head is filled with flowers? I have been very much aware of everything for a long time now, and have put a lot of thought into the both of you. That's why I've been wanting to talk to you about some of it for a while now. But anytime I'd ask to have a chat about how you guys treat me, both of you would ignore me. Actually, you'd both ignore me all this time, no matter what it was I said. Yet when it came to things like me not cooking something well enough, you'd explode. Things have really been hell for me here.
Of course things have been. We're the ones allowing you to live with us here after all. And when it comes to your job as my wife, as his mother, you have to be perfect, or else we'll seriously begin to rethink your worth in this family. Although with how much you've aged, both mentally and physically, you're really just getting in the way now, you old hag.
You never told me things like that in the past. Why have you started to call me an old hag now? Is this the reason why our son hasn't grown out of his rebellious phase at all yet?
Are you really saying something like that to me now? The guy's already graduated from college and is working now. Do you realize that him still being in a rebellious phase at his age makes no sense at all? He's past being in that phase a long time ago, woman.
I know that, Rick. That's why I find it very strange that he's still acting like a child. Sure, it's not rare for sons to not want to listen to everything their mom has to say to them, but he has never really been the one to get upset at me when I don't cook something perfectly for him. And instead of getting out of the house to cause trouble, he has been staying home to play video games while I did the chores. He's always been a really good kid, just with a bit of a childish side to him caused by someone else.
You only think of him that way so you don't get harmed mentally. But haven't you heard some of the things he's been saying to you, along with me? You really have been such an eyesore to us, working like a slave that's never had a clue.
Calling me an eyesore and a slave now? I know, I've been used and abused as your wife for many years now, but has that been the way you've always looked at me?
I knew you never had a clue about anything. I always thought you were pretty dull and all, but I never thought that you were so dull that you would make it this far without ever realizing that you've been getting used like a slave.
I just assumed that as long as I did my job correctly and continued to, there would never be any serious problems between the both of us. I felt that by not fighting back against you, things would remain calm.
I mean, yeah, you would do a lot of the chores without any flaws and would never accept any money from me working part-time to make your own, but you never saw yourself as our slave before? And that doesn't even include the fact that you were also being made to give up some of your money to us!
Well, I guess you were forcing me to have to give up some of that money to the both of you. But I just assumed that I should, since I was your wife and all the money that we earned was meant for the whole family to use.
Wow, I really did a good job choosing you to become my slave then. Maybe being a slave to us was what you were really meant to do, right? That's been your duty in this household.
I don't think...
But that life you've had as our hated slave is well over with now. Get to work unpacking all your things, please.
What? What did you just say? What did you mean by saying that to me? Hey, Rick! What? What is this all about, Rick? All of these suitcases in the trash bin outside, these are all... they're filled with all my things.
Ah, so you finally come around to finding all of that. I hope you had a good day at work today. Did you really think you could come back to this house today, though? Well, that's not the case for you anymore now. Think of that as us saying that you are no longer a part of this household anymore. And as for that divorce paperwork I had you fill out and sign, I went and handed it into the courthouse today. That marks the end of my relationship to you now, which means that you and I are no longer married.
So this all really is my stuff in here? That old-fashioned mirror that I got from my grandmother long ago is also smashed to pieces. You threw that in here knowing very well it would break my heart seeing it broken, right?
Well, of course I knew it would break your heart. Until now, you had done a really good job working as my slave. I still can't believe you made it a whole 18 years living with the both of us while being hated. But I've put an end to the pathetic life of a man and his son having to live in a house where an ugly old hag was living with them every day. I had enough of you always standing around acting like you were a part of us, so I made sure to toss everything of yours. Get the hell out of town now.
All right, I am leaving then.
I want you gone by the end of today.
Seriously, I never thought that you'd be so ruthless that you'd take things this far with me, though. This really is the end of you and I.
I've been making that pretty obvious this whole time, right? All you are is an old hag that has done nothing but work your butt off in our house while only barely being able to make enough money for yourself. I'm not sure how you'll be able to survive out there on your own, though. But you have nothing to do with me now, so I could care less if you ended up dropping dead tomorrow. Our son was also able to find himself a proper job today. That means that his and my life are now completely in the clear from here on out. We have zero use for you now.
I see. So that's why you kept me around you guys until today. Just needed to use me until you could be totally sure that he found a good job and wouldn't need my money anymore.
That's absolutely right. But now you and us will be nothing but strangers to one another. I don't want you to ever come around either one of us again after today. You're losing both your family and your house now, so I'm sure you'll go rot under some bridge in despair. But since we have nothing to do with you anymore, you can't come begging for our help.
Understood, Rick. I have no plans of ever coming back to beg for help from either one of you. Therefore, this is goodbye forever.
Hey! You have to know something about this, right? My whole entire house, it's been completely bulldozed over. There's not a single piece of it left standing. I just got home from work and the whole place is just rubble.
Who is this?
This is not the time to be screwing around with me, you old hag. I'm your ex-husband, Rick, damn it. And right now my freaking house is gone. Did you use someone to get back at me for what happened yesterday, and that's why the house is no more? Or could I have missed something? I have no idea what's happened here or why it happened.
Aren't you and I supposed to be complete strangers to one another now? You seem to be in a lot of trouble now, and it's gotten you all wound up, To the point that you had to start texting a complete stranger about everything because you had no idea what you were doing with your hands. Compared to what you said to me yesterday, what you're doing today is the complete opposite, no?
This is not the time for you to be so carefree. My whole freaking house just got demolished before I got home. This has to be your fault, right?
Blaming me already, even though you know nothing at all, it seems. How rude. Well, what's happened there was all part of my plan indeed.
What? What do you mean by that?
You started to live in that house about 20 years ago, right? Which means that you've probably forgotten all about what happened back then that allowed you to live in such a place. That house belonged to me and was under my name the whole 20 years that you had been living in it. And it was you that started to live in it without asking me for permission, yet I had no choice but to let you be. Do you not remember a single thing about what all went down back then, Rick?
Is that right? Well, even if that really was the case... Wait, so this was really your house?
Do you think that we had been renting that place the whole time? And had we, did you think that I was the one paying all of the rent every month because you didn't have to?
Actually, I did kind of think you were paying the rent for it.
You really are the most pathetic man imaginable, Rick. But I always knew that you were the worst man out there and that you just assumed the house was never mine.
What? Does that mean you went and destroyed the house without telling me first?
I never had to tell you anything, did I? The house was my house, and that land is my land. And when it comes to my house and land, I had every right to do whatever I pleased with it, without needing to ask you for permission first. Of course, I was never going to let you just stay in my house after going and kicking me out of it without talking to me first. I originally was going to have that whole debate with you about how you needed to leave, but I assumed that would be too much trouble considering the pain in the butt you are. So the easier thing for me to do was to have it demolished by some bulldozers.
I'm not screwing around right now, woman! There's no way someone could just do that to a family's house and not feel any remorse! Have you gone completely mad now?
You think that it's me who's gone mad? I believe you meant to say that you've gone mad and needed someone to help wake you up from your wild hallucination. You were going around handing in our divorce papers without asking me about it, and throwing all of my things into the trash without asking me. And way back in the day, you just came into my house and started living in it like you had the right to do so without my permission. All of that has been your wild hallucination, and you needed me to get you out of it. Did you think this all started because of me, Rick? Of course it didn't. It all started with you and that mad head you have on you.
I'm not playing around! What would have happened had my son and I been in the house still today when you had the bulldozers come? Would you have just let the bulldozers go and run over a family in their home?
I knew that you guys weren't going to be home today, and that's why I went through with it. So stop your worrying. I already had the knowledge of where you'd both be covered before going ahead with my plans. I mean, I didn't want to murder 2 people in broad daylight today.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
I mean what I just said. I knew that you both would be going out with one another to that fancy restaurant today, and that's why I was able to make my move.
How did you know there were 3 of us today, though? Why do you, of all people, know about that?
You're asking me why? Because I made sure to have the investigation finished up a long time ago, Rick.
Investigation?
Last month you told me it would be best if I started to get all my things together, right? You also were trying very hard to rub it in my face that you not only hated me, but were using me as a slave and things like that. When that happened, I knew something more serious was going on behind the scenes with you, so I went and had a look at what it could be.
Excuse me? I want to know what you did, though, to find all of this out.
For the past 20 years, I've always been so busy taking care of things for you, your son, and myself. So busy, in fact, that I never had any time to think about you or notice what all was going on around me besides what I was forced to do. But when you brought those things up to me in such a way that was meant to drive a stake through my heart, I finally had my eyes opened. You were trying with all your might to get me to leave you so you wouldn't have to struggle with me anymore. In other words, based off that motive you had, I knew there was another woman in your life.
Huh? Wait, I have no idea what you mean by that. What are you talking about?
Freaking out now and trying to hide the truth won't work. I told you that the whole investigation has been concluded on you, so it's not worth it. And today you were a very busy man having to show your son to your girlfriend. That's why you got a reservation at that very fancy restaurant and had him meet her there. Of course, you were also there to celebrate your divorce from me, right? Which is why the three of you had a blast there eating and talking about how horrible of a woman I'd been.
There's no way that's what happened. I would never.
I have all the evidence I need in both photo and video form, so I'm not kidding when I say it's really a huge waste of your time coming up with those lame excuses for why you were with her today. I even have audio evidence that I had recorded. You can't run from me now.
Why would you? Did you follow us out to that restaurant or something today?
Are you kidding me? I could never do something as shameful as that. I made sure to have a pro go out and do that for me and get all the evidence I would need in order to obtain victory later on. That's why I even have evidence of the plans you had with her to go out and stay at those hotels on dates with one another.
You hired someone to stalk us? You! When did you do that? Was it really because of all that useless crap I said to you before that made you realize?
Yes, that's what I was saying to you just a minute or two ago. And that is why I'll now be able to take out a large chunk of your money as a settlement. Make sure to have my lovely present ready when this divorce goes through, all right?
A settlement? Wait a sec, I just lost my damn house today!
You mean you lost my house today, right? And so what that you did? To me, none of your problems that have started to form today have anything to do with my life. Also, it was you that said this first, right? You will lose both your family and your home and will have to go live under a bridge somewhere in despair. And then you followed that up by saying that you guys would both be complete strangers to me, so I could not come back begging for help, right? Right?
That was...
I'm going to say the same thing back to you now, after having said that with such confidence to me. You and I are both complete strangers to one another now, so don't come back to me begging for any help.
No way! Why did I have to run my mouth like that?
I really was busy with all sorts of things back when I was married to you, but don't think that meant I never noticed how you both treated me like a complete outcast there. Of course I knew. But no matter how often I tried talking with you both, you never gave me a chance to. I tried time and time again to ask you why you would do that to me, but after so many attempts, I just gave up on it entirely. You both thought you had finally gotten to me and were able to use me to do all of the chores and such without ever saying a word. But really, I started to focus on something else entirely. That got me to the point I'm at now.
What the hell? You're making it sound like you became enlightened or something back then, and now you're rubbing that in my face, even though you had to work your ass off making money that would go to the two of us.
Yes, that's right. The start was especially hard for me. I had to work on getting back into the groove of working after having thrown my career away to have our son. All while also having to clean for you both, cook for you both, do all sorts of menial tasks for you both. But while I was going through all that pain and heartache, you were just sitting there not having to sacrifice anything, because you knew you had me as your slave. I had to sacrifice a whole lot for our son and for the both of you afterwards. And as time went on, our son grew older and my workload increased even further. You'd spend more time out of the house playing around and drinking. Then whenever you'd come home, you'd roll your eyes at all the hard work I was doing while having our son join in with you as you talked crap about me.
That was all? You're a woman, so I had no other option. As a woman, you have to make your own money, and some of that has to go to us men.
We were both having to work jobs, yet most of my money would go to you guys, while I would have to do every single chore in that house. Are you just saying that all happened because you're still living in the early 20th century mentally?
What did you say?
I never really had the time to spend talking with someone who wasn't worth talking to begin with, Rick. That's why I went and sent some bulldozers over to tear down my home filled with horrors. Had I actually tried to reason with you, I would have only been creating more stress for myself, and we would have never been able to come to any sort of an agreement. So, when you went and threw out all of my things like that, you went and got on my last nerve. Right after you finished talking to me about that, I went and had the land sold and the house planned for demolishing.
You thought that having such pride in a plan like that was a good thing?
Well, it worked out for me in the end, right? Look at your reality now, Rick. You've just lost the place you've been living in and will now fall into a life of deep despair, right? But there's still a chance that won't happen, right? I mean, you still have your career and you have a new family member now. I'm going to get that settlement from you, though, so you will be losing a lot of your money that you've been saving up. But you'll still have your career, unlike me, and a family, unlike me. So you're doing just fine compared to where I'm at right now.
My girlfriend was really looking forward to coming and living in a massive house like this, yet you went and tore it all down without my permission.
And you think your sucky situation has anything to do with me right now? If you're so worried about what she's going to think when she finds out, then why not buy your own house for her to have? I don't even understand why you think I should be feeling bad for you, when you were the one that took everything away from me.
You're a bitch, Heidi. Doing something so utterly selfish as this. You really are such an unnecessary old hag. From the bottom of my heart, I knew I was right for divorcing you.
And I feel the exact same way, which is just wonderful for the both of us then, right? I'm so happy I got a divorce from such a selfish man like you. Now good luck with whatever you decide to do next. After what you've done to me, I am ever so grateful. Not only did you help me with things like having the land under my house sold, but you got a team together to come and tear down my house today for me. You had to go through a lot of trouble in order to do such a thing for me, which I'm sure was not easy for you to accept at all. Next time, I'll make sure to treat you to whatever you'd like as of my way of saying thank you.
No. A lot of this was possible thanks to all the hard work you put in, Heidi. Good work today. There was a lot that had to happen for this all to work out for you, which I'm sure put your mind through large amounts of stress. You've already paid us very kindly for the work, and all of that was just a part of my job, which I was so happy to do for you.
But the fact that you're willing to do so much for me in such little time requires my deepest appreciation. I also have to thank you for introducing me to some of your best friends that helped make this possible for me. I'll have to tell Kyle thanks as well for showing you to me in the first place.
That is very true. He was the one that helped start this whole entire plan of yours by introducing the both of us. And I never thought that you'd be able to work with us so easily and have the means of buying from us like that. Whichever way one thinks about all of this, I'm very thankful to have worked with you.
And I am very thankful to have worked with you as well, Dirk. Thank you so very much for showing me to this lovely new home. This is just the kind of place I was hoping for, so thank you.
I just never thought that things would come this far with you, Heidi. I'm sure that now, having finished all of the plans we'd made, your ex-husband is in great shock. Being handed back all that trouble he'd been giving you in one day.
Well, I'm sure he's never going to recover from it. He should have just appreciated all that I had put up with while around him, and then none of this would have ever had to go his way.
You're 100% right about that. I can't believe he even treated someone like you in such a terrible way. I mean, I've never even seen a woman as cool as you before. Having heard your story and everything you had to endure, I'll be rooting for you for the rest of my life.
And thanks to your support, everything was able to work out perfectly in my favor. Through the help of keeping my husband unaware, I was able to move in the shadows, planning everything I needed to happen out. And sure, I may have lost many things along the way to here, but at least now I have freedom, and that is something I'd never want to live the rest of my life without. Of course, all of this led me to meeting you, Dirk, and that's something that I find more valuable than what I lost.
Hearing you say such a beautiful thing makes me so happy. If you have any time in the near future, would you like to go out to dinner with me? Since everything we had worked on ended up going perfectly for you, I'd like to take you out as a celebration for all your hard work.
Thank you so much, Dirk. And of course, I'd love to treat you to dinner as well as a celebration for everything you've contributed.
Please, Heidi, come back to me, please. Things have only gotten worse for us now.
Who is this?
We don't have to play that game anymore, all right? It's me, all right? You still remember me, don't you? I'm your ex-husband, Rick. If nothing changes for me right now, then my family is gonna be completely ruined.
I see. Well, I don't care about any of that, so good day to you. By the way, the fact that you are once again trying to trouble me with your problems now, I'm blocking you.
Listen to me, please! My wife is really cute and super young, but she doesn't know how to do any of the housework here. She's also asking me for money all the time to get her skin treated and her hair done, even though she won't bother working herself. And when it comes to our son, he wasn't doing all of his required assignments at work and just got fired from that company last week. Now all he's doing is sitting in his room again playing video games and won't come out for anything besides food. I asked my wife to iron my suit one time and she destroyed it. And when she cooks, she puts way too much spice into everything. I'm starting to have troubles myself at work now because of what's been going on with my family at home. And if things don't get better, I'll be screwed for the rest of my life too.
Good. Now you can finally see how important I was to the both of you, being able to do everything perfectly, right?
I can see that now, and that's why I need you to come back to me. Please, 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 you're important to me.
Before anything else can happen here, how about you apologize to me? Actually, forget about that, because no amount of apologizing will ever get me to go back to you. I've found myself a new man now who is far better than you, and my new happy life has finally started to take off with him. Just hearing about how you're finally falling into the pits of hell has me feeling all warm and joyful again. Oh, this really is the best feeling ever. Now, please continue falling until you reach the bottom of those pits and spend the rest of your life there regretting all you've done. After my ex-husband Rick's life took a dramatic turn for the worse, everything that he had once relied on seemed to fall apart around him. He had always been the kind of man who thought everything would simply work out for him no matter the situation. He took for granted the fact that he had me, the one person who, for the longest time, would support him no matter how badly he treated me. However, life, as it often does, had a way of turning things upside down. And the day that he was demoted to a low-level position at his job marked the beginning of the end for the life he had so carefully built. He went from a well-respected executive to barely scraping by in a job that didn't even allow him to afford basic luxuries anymore. The man who had everything now had nothing, at least nothing that he could truly hold on to. The sense of power and control that he had enjoyed for so long was slipping through his fingers, and he didn't know how to handle it. Once upon a time, Rick had been at the top of his game. He had always been the one people looked to for advice, leadership, and guidance. He had the looks, the charm, and the success that seemed to keep everyone around him in awe. But it wasn't just his career that gave him a sense of superiority. Rick had always believed that his personal life was somehow above the fray. He had taken me for granted, believing that I would always be there, serving his every need, while he lived a life of comfort and indulgence. But what he never anticipated was the breaking point that would come, the moment when I would no longer be the person who would keep forgiving him for his behavior. The day I blocked Rick's number was the day everything shifted. I had made my decision, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I put myself first. No more excuses, no more tolerating his indifference. I had been fighting my own battle for years, dealing with the weight of emotional neglect, the constant soul-crushing realization that I was living a life of service to someone who never appreciated it. But when I blocked his number, something inside me changed. I realized that I could finally have a life of my own without having to answer to anyone, without having to constantly worry about his needs, his demands, and his expectations. Once I severed that tie, I didn't waste any time. I contacted my lawyer, making sure that everything was in place to secure the settlement that I had been discussing for so long. Rick had fought it at every turn, thinking that I would back down, but I wasn't about to let him get away with it. This settlement was mine, and I was going to make sure I got what I was owed. The money from the settlement wasn't just about the financial relief it would bring me. It was about taking back control of my life. It was a reminder that I was worthy of a better future, one that didn't involve Rick's manipulation or the suffocating control he once had over me. With that money, I made a down payment on a new home. It was a fresh start, a symbol of the life I was beginning to build for myself. It felt incredible to be able to make decisions for myself without having to answer to anyone. This was my life now, and I was going to live it on my own terms. The sense of freedom that came with the decision was indescribable. For the first time in years, I was able to exhale and truly be at peace with where I was. I had finally let go of the past, and in doing so, I had unlocked a future full of possibilities. It was around that time that I met Dirk. In many ways, Dirk felt like the answer to everything I had been missing. He was nothing like Rick. While Rick had been selfish, demanding, and completely unaware of how to show affection, Dirk was different. From the moment we met, there was a spark, a connection that felt natural and right. And unlike Rick, Dirk actually knew how to share responsibilities. He wasn't the type to expect me to do everything around the house or cater to his every whim. He would cook, clean, and help out with anything that needed doing. It was so refreshing to be with someone who understood that relationships are about give and take, not just taking. Dirk's presence in my life brought me joy in ways I hadn't known in years. He was thoughtful, kind, and understanding, always putting me first. I could see myself building a future with him. I was starting to feel the pull of love again, something that I had thought was lost to me after the years of emotional turmoil with Rick. But while I was beginning to open my heart to Dirk, I was also cautious. It wasn't because I didn't love him, it was because I had just gotten out of a toxic marriage, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to jump into something as serious as marriage again. The idea of marriage has always been complicated for me. For so many years, I had lived in a relationship where my needs were ignored, where I had become nothing more than a caretaker and emotional support for someone who didn't care about my happiness. It was difficult to picture myself making that kind of commitment again so soon after escaping the nightmare that had been my marriage to Rick. But the more time I spent with Dirk, the more I realized that he was different. He wasn't like Rick, he didn't take me for granted, and he didn't expect me to be anyone other than who I was. We worked together as a team, supporting each other in ways that I had never experienced before. Dirk had become a constant in my life, and I found myself contemplating what future might hold for us. But even though I was happy, I knew that I needed to take my time. I couldn't rush into another commitment until I was sure that it was what I wanted, and that it was something that would benefit both of us. I needed to be absolutely certain that I was making the right decision, and that I was ready to give myself completely to someone again. So, while I could feel the weight of the future looming over us, I also knew that we needed to take things one step at a time. Marriage was something I wasn't ready to discuss just yet. Even though I could tell that Dirk might want to bring it up soon, I wanted to make sure that I had a solid foundation in place before jumping into something as permanent as marriage. As I reflected on everything I had been through, I couldn't help but think about the 20 years I had spent with Rick. For so long I had lived through hell, trapped in a marriage where I was undervalued and neglected. Rick had lived a life of luxury, free to do whatever he wanted without any regard for how it affected me. He had treated me like an accessory, something to show off to others, but never as someone who deserved respect and care. For so many years, I had tried to make things work, thinking that maybe, just maybe, if I gave him enough chances, he would change, but he never did. And now, as I looked back, I realized that I had spent 2 decades of my life trying to fix something that was beyond repair. Now it was my turn to live the life I had always dreamed of. While Rick had enjoyed a life of comfort, he had never truly known what it was to care about someone else's well-being. He had never understood the emotional labor it takes to maintain a relationship, but now the tables had turned. Now it was me who was living the good life, filled with happiness, love, and respect, and it was Rick who was experiencing the consequences of his actions. It was almost poetic in a way. While I had suffered for years trying to hold everything together for him, he was now the one who had to face the consequences of his own selfishness. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as I watched Rick's life crumble. He had always believed that he was untouchable, that nothing could ever go wrong for him. But now he was the one who was struggling. I had taken back control of my life, and in doing so, I had created a future that was filled with freedom and possibilities. It felt good to know that I was the one who had come out on top. I wasn't the one suffering anymore. I was the one who had won. And Rick, well, he was the one who had to pay the price for the way he had treated me. There was something liberating about knowing that he was stuck in the mess he had created. He had thought he could keep living his life without consequences, but now he was facing a taste of the hell he had put me through. And while he might try to salvage whatever dignity or reputation he had left, I knew that it was too late for him. He couldn't undo the damage he had done, and I wasn't about to be the one to fix it for him. It was his turn to live with the consequences of his actions. Looking back, I realized that I am stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. I've built a life for myself from the ground up, and I've claimed my happiness. I've learned that I am worthy of love and respect, and I will never settle for less again. As for Rick, well, I hope he enjoys the taste of hell, because there's no escaping it now. There's no crawling back out of those deep pits he's dug for himself, and as for me, I'm moving forward, building a future with someone who truly cares about me. It's a future I've earned, and I am not going to let anyone take it from me. As I look back on everything that's transpired, I can't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude. It wasn't just about the material things, the house, the money, or the new beginnings I've embraced, but the freedom to live life on my own terms. For so long, I had been trapped in the cycle of trying to please someone who could never be pleased. I had been his caretaker, his emotional support, and his silent partner in a game where I was always second. But now, I am my own person. I can breathe. I can laugh without guilt. I can pursue the things that make me happy without having to worry about his criticism or demands. Thank you for watching and listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought of the story. We look forward to seeing you at the next story.